A group of three men entered a Catholic church in Detroit during evening mass. 40 people witnessed what happened when they approached the image of the Virgin Mary. Their faces were hard, eyes red, hands clenched. A miracle that no one can explain to this day. Before we continue, share in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. Let's see how far the miracles of the Virgin Mary have reached. And if you haven't yet joined our family, subscribe now, because here, each day, we witness the tender love and mighty power of the Mother of God. It was Tuesday, March 17th, 7:15 p.m., in a working-class parish on the east side of Detroit. The church was modest, red brick outside, dark wood pews inside, stained glass windows that caught the last of the winter light. About 40 people filled the seats. Some still wore factory uniforms or store aprons. Others were older parishioners who lived in the row houses nearby. A few young families sat together, children fidgeting quietly. Father Michael Nguyen, 52, 25 years a priest, stood at the altar. He knew most names. He knew most stories. Right then he was leading the Hail Mary during the conclusion of the liturgy. Holy Mary, Mother of God. The front doors creaked open. Not unusual. People often arrived late. But the sound carried different weight this time. Three men stepped inside. Work clothes wrinkled from the day. Boots heavy on the tile. Faces tired, eyes bloodshot. They paused at the back for half a second, scanned the church, then started down the center aisle. Mrs. Elena Torres in the third row turned first. She frowned. The men walked with purpose, not toward a pew, but straight forward, toward the altar, toward the 3-foot plaster statue of Our Lady that had stood beside the tabernacle since 1953. Blue mantle, white veil, hands folded in gentle prayer. A light above it stayed on during every Massachusetts. More heads turned. Voices in the Hail Mary grew quieter. One by one the responses dropped away until the church fell silent except for footsteps. Father Michael stopped mid-sentence. He looked down the aisle, saw the three men advancing, saw the anger in their posture, the fixed stare at the statue. He stepped off the sanctuary slowly, hands open and raised slightly. "Gentlemen," he said, voice calm and steady. "Welcome. Is there something I can help you with?" The men did not answer. They kept walking until they stood about 3 meters from the altar. The one in the center, James, locked eyes on the statue. Where was she? His voice came out loud, sharp, echoing off the stone walls. "When my wife begged for healing every single night." Where was she? Father Michael took one careful step closer. "I hear your pain, son. Let's talk." Robert cut in from the right. "My boy was 8 years old. Where was she then?" Daniel, on the left, spoke quieter but no less hard. "My parents walked to Mass every Sunday their whole lives. They died coming home from it." Where was she? The 40 people in the pews sat frozen. Some held their breath. Some leaned forward. No one spoke. No one moved to leave. Compassion and fear mixed in the AIRTO. Understand what brought them there. Go back 3 hours. James Carter, 42, accountant at a mid-sized firm downtown. Widowed 6 months. His wife Maria had leukemia, diagnosed late. She fought 8 months. Prayed the rosary every day beside her bed. Kept a small blue and white image of Our Lady on the nightstand. Looked at it while she whispered petitions. She died peacefully one October morning. James spent the months after on autopilot. Work, sleep, repeat. The apartment felt smaller every day. Friends called less after he said no to every invitation. His sister finally pushed him toward a grief support group. "You need people who get it," she said. James went mostly to quiet her. Robert Hayes, 38, electrician. Divorced 2 years. Had an 8-year-old son, Ethan, who lived with his mother during the week. Robert had him weekends. For months earlier, Ethan got sick. Started as a cough. Turned fast. Hospital in 2 weeks. Diagnosis in 3, aggressive leukemia. Robert dropped every job. Lived at the hospital. Prayed when words ran out. Promised everything. Ethan died after 6 weeks. His ex-wife blamed Robert for not noticing symptoms sooner. Robert blamed himself worse. His therapist recommended the same support group after he broke down at a job site. Daniel Morales, 35, manager at a big box store. Only child. His parents, devout Catholics, 68 and 70, died 3 months earlier. Car ran a red light on their way home from Sunday, Massachusetts. The priest at the funeral said, "God has a plan." Daniel walked out without replying. Inside he burned. What plan took two good people who never missed Mass, who fed the hungry, who prayed the rosary together every evening? Friends didn't know what to say. He joined the group because he had run out of places to go. The support group met every Tuesday at 4 in a small room at the parish center. Chairs in a circle, weak coffee on a side table. Karen Willis, 50, ran it. She had lost her husband 5 years earlier. She never forced anyone to speak. She just held the space. Week 3, Robert spoke first. "My son was 8. Loved drawing superheroes. Wanted to be a firefighter." His voice cracked. He covered his face. Week 4, James. "My wife prayed every day. Real faith. Believed she would be healed. Where was God?" Week 5, Daniel. Flat voice. "My parents were the most religious people I knew. Died coming back from church. What's the point?" After that session, the three walked out together. Unplanned. Stood in the parking lot 20 minutes. "You feel the anger too?" Robert asked. "All the time," James said. "Feels like we were lied to," Daniel added. The following weeks they left as a group. Sometimes a diner. Sometimes just walking. They talked about the pain, the betrayal, the feeling that prayer had been a waste. That Tuesday the meeting ended at 5. They went to a small restaurant nearby. Ordered food. Barely ate. Talked for hours. Anger that usually stayed inside began to spill. "People keep saying it was God's plan," James said. "Like my wife's 8 months of suffering was part of some beautiful design." "My parents were good people," Daniel said. "Faithful. Kind. And they're gone." "I prayed until my throat was raw," Robert said. "Promised everything. Nothing changed." At 6:30 they left the restaurant. None wanted to go home to empty houses. They walked. Aimless. Talking. Silent stretches. At 7:15 they passed the church. Lights on. People going in for evening Massachusetts. James stopped. "Maria went here. My son was baptized here," Robert said. "My parents came every Sunday," Daniel said. They looked at each other. The anger found direction. "Let's go in," James said. "Now?" Daniel asked. "Now." Robert nodded. They crossed the street, pushed open the doors. The three men stepped through the doors into the warm light of the church. The scent of incense still lingered from the earlier part of Massachusetts. The congregation had just finished the Hail Mary. Father Michael's voice had been steady, familiar, blending with the others. Now it stopped. James led the way. Robert and Daniel followed close behind. Their boots echoed on the tile. Every head turned. The quiet grew heavier with each step. No one spoke. No one moved to stop them. They reached the front. 3 meters from the altar. 3 meters from the statue of Our Lady. Blue mantle. White veil. Hands joined in gentle prayer. The same image that had stood there since 1953. The same image Maria had kept beside her bed. The same image Ethan had once pointed to and asked, "Is she real, Daddy?" The same image Daniel's parents had knelt before every evening. James stopped first. His eyes fixed on the statue. His voice came out rough, louder than he intended. "Where was she?" He looked straight at Father Michael. "When my wife begged for healing every single night. When she prayed the rosary until her fingers bled. When she looked at an image just like this one and said, 'It's going to be okay.' Where was she?" Robert stepped forward. His voice cracked on the first word. "My son was 8. 8 years old. He liked drawing superheroes. He wanted to be a firefighter. I prayed so hard my throat went raw." "Where was she?" Daniel spoke last. Quiet. Flat. But the words carried weight. "My parents walked to Mass every Sunday their whole lives. They died coming home from it." "Where was she?" The 40 people in the pews sat frozen. Some held their breath. Some leaned forward. Mrs. Torres clutched her rosary beads so tightly her knuckles turned white. A young mother pulled her toddler closer. No one spoke. No one moved. Father Michael stepped down from the sanctuary slowly. Hands open. Voice calm. "I hear your pain," he said. "All three of you. I'm listening. Let's talk." James cut him off. "You don't understand. Nobody understands." He took another step. Now only 2 meters from the statue. Robert and Daniel moved with him. Their faces were hard. Their hands clenched. James lifted his right arm. Robert and Daniel did the same. They were going to strike the image. To push it. To break it. To make something hurt the way they hurt. And then they stopped. All three at once, as if they had walked into an invisible wall. James's arm froze midair. His foot would not move forward. He tried again. Nothing. His legs simply would not obey. Robert frowned. Tried to take a step. Could not. Daniel looked down at his own feet. They felt rooted to the floor. "What?" James whispered. Then the scent arrived. Roses, strong, fresh, sweet. Impossible. It filled the space around the 3 men. Not the whole church. Just them. The 40 people in the pews smelled nothing. But James, Robert, and Daniel breathed it in deeply. It wrapped around them. Gentle. Overwhelming. Familiar. James looked around. "Do you smell that?" "Roses," Robert said, voice low. Confused, Daniel nodded slowly. "How?" They stood there. Frozen. Unable to move. Unable to lower their arms. Unable to look away from the statue. And then their legs gave way. Not from weakness. From something deeper. All three dropped to their knees at the same moment. James first. Then Robert. Then Daniel. Knees hit the tile hard. Hands fell to their sides. The anger that had carried them down the aisle vanished. In its place came everything they had buried for months. James broke first. A deep, wrenching sob tore out of him. He covered his face with his hands. Tears came fast. He cried for Maria, for the mornings they would never have again, for the way she smiled at him even when the pain was unbearable, for the nights he sat beside her bed and could do nothing but hold her hand. Robert cried next. Loud. Raw. For Ethan. For the superhero drawings still taped to the refrigerator. For the weekends that would never come. For every time he said, "Later, buddy," when his son wanted to play. Daniel cried last. Silent at first, then shaking. For his parents. For the things he never said. For the empty house that still smelled like them. For the faith they tried to give him that he had turned away from. The 40 people watched in silence. Some cried too. Some pressed hands to their mouths. Father Michael stepped closer, placed a gentle hand on James's shoulder. "She listens," he said quietly, "even when it feels like she doesn't." James lifted his face. Eyes red, swollen, voice broken. "Then why didn't she do anything?" "Sometimes the answer isn't healing," Father Michael said. "Sometimes it's the strength to endure, to keep going, to find meaning even when there seems to be none." "But I wanted her to stay," James whispered. "I know. And she knows too." Robert wiped his face with his sleeve. "My son was 8. I know," Father Michael said. Daniel said nothing. He just looked at the statue, tears streaming. For the first time in months, he did not feel rage. He felt something else. Not peace yet, not full relief, but a door opening, a crack of light. The 3 men stayed on their knees for several minutes, crying, breathing the scent of roses that still surrounded them. No one in the pews moved. No one spoke. The silence held them all. Then, slowly, the scent began to fade. James was the first to stand, legs shaking. Robert and Daniel followed. They looked at one another. No words needed. They had felt the same thing, lived the same moment. James turned to Father Michael. "I'm sorry," he said, "for interrupting Massachusetts. For everything." Father Michael shook his head. "You don't need to apologize. Pain needs somewhere to go. Better here than kept inside." James looked at the 40 faces in the pews. Not one showed anger, only compassion, understanding. "Sorry for disturbing you," he said to them. The three men turned, walked slowly back down the aisle. When they reached the doors, James looked back once more at the statue. The scent was gone, but something had changed inside him. He felt it. Outside on the sidewalk, the cold March air hit them. They stood together under the streetlight. Did that really happen? Robert asked. Roses, Daniel said. All of us felt it. And we couldn't move, James added. We were going to do something we'd regret. They looked at each other. No need for more words. Go home, James said. I'm tired. Me too, Robert said. Next week? Daniel asked. Support group? Next week. The other two answered. They walked away, each to his own empty apartment. But the anger they had carried like armor was cracked, leaving room for something else. Not healing yet. Not peace yet, but the beginning. The three men stood frozen, arms raised, inches from the statue. Then the invisible barrier hit them. James tried to push forward. His body refused. Legs locked. Robert strained. Nothing. Daniel pushed harder, feet rooted to the tile. They looked at each other, confusion cutting through the anger. Then the scent arrived. Roses, strong, fresh, sweet. It wrapped around them like a blanket. Not the whole church, just the three of them. The 40 people in the pews smelled nothing. But for James, Robert, and Daniel, the fragrance was overwhelming. Clean, gentle, impossible. James blinked. Do you smell that? Roses, Robert whispered, voice shaking. Daniel inhaled deeply. Where from? No flowers in sight. No one carrying bouquets. No air freshener. Nothing. Yet the scent grew stronger. It filled their lungs, calmed the fire in their chests. And with it came the first crack. Their legs gave way. All three at once. James dropped to his knees first. Hard. Tall met bone. Robert fell to the right. Daniel to the left. Knees hit the floor in perfect sync. Hands dropped to their sides. Arms limp. The anger that had driven them down the aisle vanished. What remained was everything they had buried. James broke open. A deep sob tore from his chest. He covered his face. Tears came fast. He cried for Maria, for the way she held his hand in the hospital bed and whispered, "It's going to be okay," even when they both knew it wasn't. For the mornings he woke up reaching for her and found empty sheets. For the nights he sat alone staring at her empty pillow. For every time he said, "I'm fine," when he wasn't. Robert cried next. Loud, raw, face in his hands. For Ethan. For the superhero drawings still taped to the fridge door. For the weekend mornings when Ethan would climb into his lap with a crayon and say, "Draw with me, Dad." For the hospital nights when he promised everything, anything, if God would just let his boy stay. For the silence after the machine stopped. For the empty car seat in the back that he still could not bring himself to remove. Daniel cried last. Quiet at first, then shaking, tears streaming without sound. For his parents. For the Sunday dinners where his mother always set an extra place, just in case. For his father's quiet habit of praying the rosary after supper. For the phone calls he never made. For the house he still could not enter. For the faith they lived every day that he had turned his back on after the funeral. The 40 people in the pews watched in complete silence. Mrs. Torres pressed her rosary to her lips. A young father held his daughter closer. An older man wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. No one spoke. No one judged. Compassion filled the church like the scent had filled the men. Father Michael stepped forward slowly, placed a gentle hand on James's shoulder. "She listens," he said quietly, "even when it feels like she doesn't." James lifted his head, eyes red, swollen, voice broken. Then why didn't she save her? Sometimes the answer isn't saving, Father Michael said. Sometimes it's the strength to carry on, to keep breathing, to find meaning even when the world feels empty. "But I wanted her here," James whispered. "With me." "I know," Father Michael said. "And she knows too." He moved his hand to Robert's shoulder. "Your son was loved. Every day he was here, he was loved. That love doesn't disappear." Robert nodded, tears still falling. "I miss him so much." "I know." Father Michael looked at Daniel. Your parents gave you everything they had, including their faith. They still do. Daniel stared at the statue, tears streaming. For the first time in months, he did not feel only rage. He felt something else, a small opening, a possibility that maybe the pain could be carried differently. The three men stayed on their knees, crying, breathing the fading scent of roses. The church remained silent, holding them all. After several long minutes, James drew a ragged breath, wiped his face with his sleeve, slowly stood, legs unsteady. Robert and Daniel rose with him. They looked at each other. No words needed. They had felt the same thing, lived the same moment. James turned to Father Michael. I'm sorry, he said, for coming in like this. For everything. Father Michael shook his head. You don't need to apologize. Pain needs a place to go. Better here than kept inside where it destroys you. James looked back at the 40 faces in the pews. Not one showed anger, only quiet understanding. Some had tears in their own eyes. Sorry for disturbing Mass, James said to them. The three men turned, walked slowly down the aisle, boots softer now. When they reached the doors, James paused, looked back once more at the statue. The scent was gone, but the weight inside him felt different. Lighter, cracked open. Outside, the March cold hit them again. They stood under the streetlight, breath visible. Did that really happen? Robert asked. Roses, Daniel said. We all smelled it. And we couldn't move, James said. We were going to do something stupid. Robert nodded. Something we couldn't take back. They stood in silence a moment longer. Go home, James said. I'm tired. Me too, Robert said. Next week? Daniel asked. Support group? Next week. The other two answered. They walked away, each toward his own quiet apartment. But the anger they had carried like a second skin had begun to loosen. Not gone, not healed, but loosened, the beginning of something else. The three men stood outside under the streetlight, breath visible in the cold March air. No one spoke for a long moment. James broke the silence first. I was going to push it over, he said quietly. Break it. I wanted something to hurt like I hurt. Robert nodded. Me too. Daniel looked down at his hands. We couldn't even take the step. They looked at each other. The memory of the roses still clung to them. Faint now, but real. Something stopped us, James said. Someone, Robert corrected. Daniel made a small sound. Not quite a laugh. Not quite a sob. I haven't cried like that since the funeral. None of them had. They stood there a little longer. Then James exhaled. Go home, he said. I'm tired. Me too, Robert said. Next week? Daniel asked. Support group? Next week. The other two answered. They walked away, each toward his own quiet apartment. But the anger they had carried for months felt different now. Cracked open. Not gone. Not healed. But cracked. The beginning of something else. The next Tuesday came. The support group met at 4 as always. Same small room. Same circle of chairs. Same weak coffee on the side table. Karen looked up when the three men walked in. She noticed something different in their faces. Not peace exactly. Not relief. But something softer. Less guarded. They sat in their usual places. Karen opened the space the way she always did. Does anyone want to share? James looked at Robert. Then at Daniel. They nodded. Something happened, James began. Last Tuesday. After group. He told it carefully. Not everything. He left out the part about raising their arms to break the statue. But he spoke about walking past the church, going in, confronting the image, the sudden scent of roses, the way they couldn't move, the way they fell to their knees, the way they cried, really cried, for the first time in months. When he finished, the room stayed quiet. Karen looked at him. Did it help? James thought before answering. The pain is still there. Maria isn't coming back. But the anger, it's not burning me alive anymore. When it left, I could finally feel everything underneath. The good memories, the way she laughed, the mornings we had together, without the fury ruining it all. Robert spoke next. My son is still gone. Always will be. But now I can think about the good things. The drawings. The way he hugged me when I came home. Not just the end, Daniel just nodded. That's all I've got right now. Karen smiled gently. Thank you for sharing. In the weeks that followed, small changes appeared. James drove to the cemetery for the first time since the burial. Stood in front of Maria's stone. Cried. Not with rage. With sorrow. With love. He placed fresh flowers there. Not roses. Lilies. Her favorite. He stayed an hour. Talking to her quietly. Telling her about his day. Telling her he missed her. Telling her he was trying. Robert called his ex-wife. First time in months. The conversation was hard. Painful. They cried on the phone. He apologized for pulling away. For leaving her to grieve alone. She apologized too. Said she missed having someone who understood. They did not get back together. But they began to speak regularly. Shared memories of Ethan. Cried together. Remembered together. Daniel finally walked into his parents' house. He had avoided it since the funeral. The key felt heavy in his hand. He opened the door. The smell hit him first. Faint traces of his mother's cooking, his father's aftershave. He sat on the living room floor. Opened photo albums. Looked at every picture. Cried. Laughed once or twice. Remembered. He spent the afternoon there. Packing nothing. Just being. When he left, he took one small thing, his father's rosary. Put it in his pocket. Carried it every day after that point. 1 month later, James did something he had not done in a long time. He went to Sunday, Massachusetts, entered quietly at 10 o'clock. The church was full. He stayed in the back pew. Did not sing. Did not receive communion. Just sat. Watched. Listened. Father Michael saw him from the altar. Nodded once. James nodded back. After Mass, Father Michael walked over. Good to see you here, he said. James looked at the floor. Then up. Thought I should try. After everything. How are you? Better, James said. Not good, but better. It's a start. Father Michael smiled. It is. James hesitated. Father, that night. What happened? Father Michael looked toward the statue of Our Lady. There are things we can't explain. Things science doesn't reach. Faith isn't about having every answer. It's about trusting even when we don't understand. But it was real, James said. All three of us felt it. I believe you. And I believe she was there. Not to judge. Not to punish. But to hold you when you were about to break something. Maybe yourself most of all. James looked at the statue again. Longer this time. She stopped us from destroying what was left of us. Father Michael placed a hand on his shoulder. The anger was eating you from the inside. That night you finally let it out. And she was there when you did. James stayed quiet a moment. I'll come back next week. I'll be here, Father Michael said. 2 months after that night, the three men still went to the support group every Tuesday. But now they did not leave carrying only anger. They left carrying hope too. Small, fragile, but real. 6 months later, on a Tuesday night, they met outside the church again. Not planned. They just arrived at the same time. They went in together. Mass had already started. They sat in the last pew. When the Hail Mary came, they prayed with the congregation. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. For the first time, the words meant something. Not mechanical, not empty. A real request. For strength. For peace. For the ability to keep going. After Mass, they stayed seated while others left. Then they stood. Walked to the front. Stood before the statue. James spoke first. Quiet. Thank you. For stopping me. For stopping us. Robert added. Thank you for holding us. Daniel said nothing. Just made the sign of the cross. The way his parents taught him. The way he had not done since they died. Father Michael appeared from the side. You came back. James nodded. We thought it was right. Father Michael smiled. How are you all doing? Robert answered. Some days better. Some days harder. But surviving. Daniel added. That's enough for now. Father Michael looked at them. Survive one day. Then another. Until one day you realize you're doing more than surviving. You're living again. James looked at the statue. We're not there yet. You will be, Father Michael said. In your own time. And so it became routine. Every Tuesday after support group, they went to evening Massachusetts, sat in the back pew. Prayed. not looking for miracles, not demanding answers, just sitting in a place where pain was acknowledged, where they could be broken and still be accepted. The statue remained, blue and white, 3 feet tall, fresh flowers at her feet every week now. Father Michael placed them himself. For most people in the church, she was just an image. Beautiful, traditional, but for James, Robert, and Daniel, she was something more. A reminder of a night when anger almost won. A night when something stopped them, held them, let them fall to their knees, but not break completely. They knew what they felt. They knew the difference between imagination and reality. They knew something happened. Call it what you want. Miracle, grace, intervention. The name does not matter as much as the effect. Point: 3 men drowning in anger found, for a moment, something that held them, kept them from destroying what was left. Open space for the real pain to surface, and pain, as much as it hurts, can eventually heal. Anger only breeds more anger, but pain, given time, can become memory, can become acceptance, can become the ability to live again. Before we finish, if this story reached you, if you felt even a small echo of hope, write "they were not alone" in the comments below. The words 3 men discovered were true when everything seemed lost. I read every one. Each reminds me that Our Lady's quiet presence still reaches those who need it most. If you want to stay close to these stories of grace, subscribe and turn on notifications. Share this with someone carrying heavy grief or anger. They may need to remember that no night is too dark for her notice. May the Virgin Mary wrap your heart in her mantle. May she hold you when you cannot hold yourself. And may she remind you, always, that you are never alone. Amen.